Well, in today's culture, building and developing leaders has been something that is a challenge, not just in business, but also in churches. And so today we are going to be joined by Pastor Micah Marshall, and he's going to be talking to us a little bit about how he's working with his organization, Refuge Youth Network, to build and develop leaders. That's today on the 306 podcast. Welcome back to the 306 podcast. My name is Scott. If you haven't already, please subscribe. If you like this content, like and subscribe. You can find us on YouTube and on social media. Just search for Love Local PA, Love Local PA on all of those social media networks. So today I am joined by Micah Marshall. He has, I don't even know how we met. It was through Instagram somehow.
Yeah, I started following Love Local,
Yeah.
I believe, and we just connected and we're like, yeah, we need to get together.
Yeah.
And that was pretty much just the social media connection that happens so often.
It's a pretty cool story.
It is.
Yeah, it was just weird because I was thinking of it this morning. I was like, how did we meet? But yeah, it's under the bridge now.
Yeah, it is, man.
But so I'm really excited about this conversation that we're going to have because what you're doing with Refuge Youth is, well, how about you explain what Refuge Youth is?
Absolutely.
And we'll go from there.
Yeah, it's great to be here with you, Scott, and just be supportive of what you're doing, and you're so supportive of what we're doing. And but Refuge Youth Network is a nonprofit organization that works with students in 7th through 12th grade in Blair County. And it has been an incredible journey. We started 8 years ago as a youth pastor. I was brought into the area at one church. And we had about 25 kids that we were running there. In about 6 months, we were at 150 to 160 kids, all bussed in from the community. And from there, it was just a snowball, man. God gave me a vision of a regional youth ministry and what that would look like. I had no idea. I was like, okay, he dropped that in my heart years ago, and I never understood until, it just started unraveling as you take steps in life. And here we are years later, and we have 3 campuses that are in Altoona, Bellwood, and Tyrone, where students can come and meet, and they can have a safe place to go. Each night have a student service. We have games, music, food. There's always food with teenagers, so you always gotta have snacks or something to eat. So we provide that all through the year, and then we have these clubs that we run: fishing, hiking and biking, girls club, movie club, pretty much any club that we can come up with that will keep students busy during the summertime or during the school year, to keep them off the streets, keep them out of trouble. And so it has been a crazy ride. We've had over 2,500 students come through Refuge program since we started years ago. And I just have had the privilege of meeting so many amazing students that are making great impact in the world already. And it has been cool to see them. And a lot of what we're going to talk about this morning, I have a lot of students who has phased out of being a student and into this leadership role that now works with Refuge Youth Network, which has been, it's probably one of the greatest honors as a leader, is when you have people that go through your program and say, hey, I want to come back and be part of this as a leader to help assist you. And so it's been really cool to see this journey of leadership that these kids take. Yeah,
and that's awesome. I mean, I know just whenever I was growing up, one of the first times that I talked to you, I said, I wish that there would have been, a Refuge Youth whenever I was growing up. Like, it's just something that connects with me.
Yeah.
And so it's just awesome hearing that. And it's encouraging to see that there is this movement of Christians saying, you know what, we need to really get serious about developing the next generation of leaders.
Absolutely.
I mean, you look at today's culture, and, I talk a lot about culture because I feel that it's very relevant. And just the fact that we're seeing a decline of people going to church, of people understanding what faith is, understanding what even Christianity is. And you even have some Christians, will say, that are confused about what Christianity is. And my belief is that all stems back to leadership.
Yeah,
it all stems back to a lack of people standing up and saying, no, this is what this is, or we need to move in this direction.
Oh, absolutely. And we've seen a shift in culture where we've taken this concept of Jesus that he, used to be the Savior that hung on the cross. Then he kind of became a pop icon in the 90s, in the early 2000s. And then he became this thing of relevancy that is, it's cool to talk about and think about, but it's not cool to live about.
Right.
And so this cultural shift has happened where we've had to repaint this picture of Jesus to a generation that says, not only he's not just a pop icon, he's not just a great man that lived in history. He wasn't just a man that treated people well, but he is actually the Savior that God sent for us. And so we have this whole thing called Repaint Jesus a message series that we do, and we talk about how to make Jesus, how to have this understanding that Jesus has been and will always be relevant to culture.
Yeah.
Always be, because when he lived, man, he redefined what culture was in so many different aspects of the way that he treated people, the way that he shifted cultural norms from this is the way you do things to you shouldn't talk to this woman, you shouldn't talk to this person because they're from this background. And Jesus just blew all of those cultural mindsets out of the water. And so we're trying to allow these students to realize that Jesus is so relevant and they need him. They need him to survive in this culture.
Yeah, and so. In your experience, I mean, you've been doing this again how long?
I'm going in my 8th year.
That's awesome.
8th year here, 9 years, going in my 9th year of working with students.
And how has it changed in just those 8 to 9 years?
Oh man,
how has it changed? Like, are the struggles that the first set of kids that came through?
Yeah.
Are they the same? Are they just more intense? I mean, because you have to deal with social media, you have to deal with entertainment, you have to deal with the home culture.
Yeah.
How do you do that?
Well, man, it has been this just, problems are problems regardless of when or how. I mean, it doesn't matter where you come from. A problem is a problem, and how you deal with it. But what we have seen in this shift of culture is, when you and I grew up, and even like this class that maybe I had 9 years ago, there was an element of respect that was just taught to us, that it was ingrained in us, that we respected people with position, with title, or just because we were told to, because of maybe age. So we have these three things: age, title, position, whatever it is, that we just instantly respected them because of that. But what we've seen is this shift of culture where I will no longer respect you because I'm told to. I will no longer respect you because you have this position, or because, you have a title. And so what we've seen is this lack of respect that a generation is now being brought up in, where they don't know what it is to respect or how it is to respect people. But what we have found in this shift in the last several years is they will respect you out of relationship. So it's just out of this relationship. And I think that has been one of the biggest cultural shifts that I have seen, is a level of respect and of honor, where it's not anymore where I'm just going to listen to you because you tell me to listen to you because you're older. Well, no, I'm going to listen to you because I respect you. It would be like if we have a bunch of kids that are at Wendy's or McDonald's causing a ruckus, and you walk in and yell at them and tell them to settle down, they're going to be like, well, who are you?
Right.
Like, we don't have to listen to you. But if I walk in knowing these kids and I yell at them, there's this instant respect that is brought, where they'll be like, okay, yeah, we'll settle down. Why? Because relationship driven. And so, Ryan Alden, our director of operations, who is just an amazing guy that has taken us to a whole new level with Refuge. He and I have had the honor of talking to many local businesses. We've talked to, we did a thing at the Altoona bus garage with all the bus drivers on how to connect with a disconnected generation that does not respect you.
Right.
But I would say, Scott, that in my opinion, the biggest cultural shift we have seen is respect in relationships, and how we have to navigate that and figure that out.
Yeah. And so there's a ton of books on, how to lead and how to do this, and especially with youth. I mean, they're kind of that targeted, thing. And it doesn't seem like many of them rely on relational, because there's a difference between relational information and just regular feeding information.
Yeah.
Kids don't respond well to lecture halls.
No, they do not.
They're more, let's sit on a couch and let's talk.
Yes.
Kind of thing. So I guess the big thing that we need to learn as adults, or just as individuals, is, what does it look like to actively lead someone of youth?
Yeah. Well, and going back to this respect thing, and that's where it all stems from. Is so how do I lead well and lead strong, but also gain the respect of them without being dogmatic over them? And in our leadership, and just what God has taught me over the years is that the greatest form of leadership that I can lead a generation with is not leading from above them, but among them. Because as I lead among them, just like Jesus did, Jesus was among the people. People followed him because they related to who he was. And so we found that if we're connecting with these students and we're living, and we call it doing life, if I'm doing life with them every day and I'm exchanging my life and their life back and forth, and there's this exchange of life that we do constantly, then this respect level, this honor level will be there because they're like, man, this leader is always there for me, or Scott's always there for me, Micah's, Ryan, whoever it might be is always there for me. When that is there is a level of them being willing, they open up a door to their life and say, now you have a right to speak to me. And I think that's the biggest thing is that there's so many books out there that are saying, it's information driven, it's this driven. I will tell you just from personal experience, what we have seen work is relational driven leadership, where you walk with them hand in hand, foot in foot. And, one of the biggest things that we have to do is we have to celebrate their success with them. When they're successful, we celebrate. When they struggle, we walk with them through the struggle. And we have to be leaders that are willing to say, you know what, this is not just, I'm telling you what to do and you're listening. This is, I will show you what to do step by step, and I will be there when you fail, but also when you succeed.
And as part of that, sharing with them your successes and your failures.
Absolutely.
So many people want to just say,
absolutely,
oh, you want to be in my position because of money, because of influence, because of how I look in public or how I'm perceived in public.
Yeah.
And people, you can find every kind of podcast, every kind of video series on the good things about being a leader.
Oh, yeah.
What are some of the struggles of being a leader?
Well, and I think that's the biggest thing is, you do get put on this pedestal or this footstool as a leader in the community. So you have to be very careful and you have to be very mindful of, I have a whole generation of students that are watching every move that I make, that our team makes. And, and our team and our volunteers that we have some of the most amazing volunteers. We have about 35 volunteers that work with us, and we are very close knit, and we're a family. We hold each other accountable, and we're there. And, we have to be very careful what we post on social media. We even your opinions on certain things, what movies you're going to see. You have to be very careful on, living your life the way that you want to, but also living it knowing that you're setting the example. And so I think for me personally is being so involved in the community is that people watch you. And we live in a society that rejoices in the failures of leaders.
Yes.
And as sad as that is, that's the truth. And we're trying to show this culture that what happens when you fail, you get back up and you try it again and you try to do it well. You correct your mistakes. You correct what you do. I have been accused of being way too transparent with my life and my failures and what I've gone through sometimes. But I would rather be transparent and teach a student something or teach somebody something about, failure and say, listen, I messed up. I failed. I remember one of my rookie mistakes in youth ministry. I remember I had a bunch of girls who were getting ready for prom, and they were all excited, and so they come to youth group on Wednesday, and we have praise and worship, and they're listening, and they're singing, and they're getting into the Bible, and they're praying, and they're doing all the right spiritual stuff. And then I get sent a video of them dancing at prom. And I'm like, what are you doing? Why are you dancing like that? Why are you wearing we call it hoochie outfit? What are you doing? And one of the rookie mistakes I did is I called a group out. I didn't use their names, but I called a generality out on social media. And it was one of my biggest failures. And I actually went back on the next day and said, guys, I was wrong. And I named every girl that I called out, and I went to them that next Sunday. I said, listen, I'm sorry. I made this mistake. But can I tell you that I developed some great relationships with those students because of my failure? Yeah. And you learn through your failures. You learn through that. And I think that that's one of those things that being a leader, sometimes we think that when we have failed, that no one wants to follow us. Right. And no one wants anything to do with us. But I'm telling you, that is the complete opposite of this generation. They don't want anything weird. They want real. Yeah. If you can be as real with them as possible, they're going to listen to you. And they're going to say, listen, this guy, Pastor Micah messed up. Yeah. But I'm still going to follow him because he's still doing it. Yeah. He's still trying. And I think that's what they're looking for, because they want to know that you're human too.
Yeah.
Because we have this mindsets of leaders like, oh, they don't mess up, they don't screw up, they don't do this, they don't do that, they don't cuss, they don't do all these things. And then when they do, you're like, oh my gosh, like how could you do this? You messed up. And it's this image of what we do. And we've tried to break that glass ceiling of imagery and saying, like, guys, we're as real as it gets. This is who I am. This is how I act. This is what I talk like. This is like, this is what I watch. This is the music I like. This is who I am.
Yeah.
And so transparency. But I mean, we could spend all day talking about the hardships of being a leader sometimes. But I really believe that relational leadership is the best leadership when it comes to working with students, man. I can't echo that enough, where we have seen it successfully change students' lives because of that.
Yeah, and one of the things that you had mentioned to me in one of our meetings was the fact that you just don't see these kids at church.
No.
You're actually in their lives outside of church.
Absolutely.
And so, I mean, and again, you could probably talk all day on this as well, but just the fact that you could have a kid who, you show up to their ball game, their recital, their whatever it is, and, they're always going to be looking to see who's there.
Yes.
Every kid will do it.
Absolutely.
And they see you.
Yes.
That just solidifies to them what?
Well, I think for them, it's this. They live in a society that is constantly changing, and they live in a very insecure culture as well, where the security of mom's not always there. Dad's not always there. People that have broken promises to them, saying, oh, I'll be there, and not showing up and not being a part. And so, number one, we're going to these games because we truly care about these kids. And we want to let them know, like, listen, like, you're not just a number on a Wednesday or Tuesday night that is sitting in the seat. You're an actual human that I care about, and I want to see you succeed. I can't tell you how many basketball games I have gone to, how many baseball games I've gone to, how many softball. I mean, I became a softball fanatic for a few years because we were going like every other night to our these kids' softball games. And what it tells these kids, it tells them that you matter. Yeah. You matter beyond this. We have this, especially in ministry, the focus is so much on the service. Like when I'm preaching, like that's the main focus. That's what I'm getting ready for. 90% of effective youth ministry is done outside of your normal whatever night you have. 90% of that impact is going to be outside of that, because you can get up and preach the best sermon in your life and capture them for 30 or 35 minutes, and that's awesome. And they're going to get that for that 30 to 35 minutes. But what they will get when you go to the game is the memory of you being there.
Right.
And so we're teaching them that building these memories of saying like, hey, remember this time, remember that time, at this basketball game or that basketball game. We want to make it memorable for them because some of them have no one to cheer for them. And if I just have to go and be a cheerleader and sit on the sideline and be a sit-in parent for one of them and just yell and scream and get yelled at by the ref, whatever it might be, which has happened plenty of times, like, you need to settle down. Whatever it might be, we're going to cheer them on because we want them to know, like, listen, you do matter to us.
Yeah. And that's awesome. I mean, and there's definitely not enough of it. Mm-hmm. But part of the thing that you said is, as being a leader, you get the opportunity to live it out for other people as well.
Yes.
So you have these people that are looking for ways to lead better. You have maybe ministries looking for ways to engage better with their youth, and they're seeing that the informational highway that they're just trying to ram down their throats isn't working.
No.
And so what you've done is you've created a platform where you're not claiming anything special. I mean, you're just looking at what Scripture says you should do.
Absolutely.
But you're giving them the footprint of how to do it.
Yeah.
And so they can pick it up and they can say, now we need to do this.
Yeah. So many people come to us and say, okay, what's the secret sauce? What's the secret behind all of this? How, like, what are you doing that gets all of this attention, that gets all these kids? What are you doing? It's very simple. We're loving them.
Yeah.
And we're going beyond beyond the normality of what typical things are in church sometimes, where, I just talked to you when you come to my small group, or I see you on the Sunday morning or whatever. We're actively engaging their lives. We're connecting with them in their environment. So we have this process of how we look at how we run Refuge. We contact them where they're at in their environment. We connect with them, and then we create opportunities for mentoring and discipleship and that one-on-one stuff where we can go and hang out with them. And so the model is simply based on how we saw Jesus interact with people. That's it.
Yeah.
You didn't see Jesus do anything with any of these big things with flair or this or that. It was simply conversations. It was simply time. One of the coolest things that I remember, and I don't remember who said it to me, but someone asked me this question. They said, Micah, who is the most important person in Jesus' life? And I began to rack my brain. Was it his mom? Was it Peter? Was it Lazarus? Because it said he cried when Lazarus died. Like, who was it? And I was like, oh, I don't know. He said the most important person in Jesus' life was the one that stood in front of him. And that just totally sat in my spirit and just became a primary focus of whoever is in front of me, whatever kid's in front of me, they're the most important person to me at that moment. So whatever I can do to solidify that they have value to who God is and how God created them to be, I mean, that's what I need to do.
Yeah. So to transition on our way out of this podcast is we've talked a lot about leading people.
Yeah.
But the only way to grow leadership, I mean, you can get maxed out as a leader.
Absolutely.
You can only effectively lead so many people. So how do you as a leader train up additional leaders to lead?
Oh yeah. Well, the first thing we look for are people that have that genuine relationship with Jesus, obviously. But then the second thing is that you have to be made of a certain pedigree to work with students.
Yeah.
We've had plenty of people that say, I want to volunteer, and we've never seen them again. They came one night and we've never, like they blocked me on Facebook, Instagram, like they don't want anything to do because it was so traumatizing. But we look for people that have that pedigree, that DNA that says like, because you got to have some grit to you. You got to have some grit to say like, no, I'm gonna tough this out and I'm gonna do it because it's not easy. You have to be able to have that passion. And I think that's the biggest thing is that we're all called to something. We're all called to something. And there are people that are out there that are called to work with youth and they don't even know that they are. And I get a lot of times, well, we're too old. Well, a generation needs grandparents. A generation needs a mom and dad. A generation needs a big brother or a big sister. So there are so many areas that you can fill within a generation's life. But what we're looking for specifically in our leadership are people that are passionate about Jesus and passionate about kids, and that have this grit and have this edge to them that will, attract. And what's cool is we see that in so many different personalities. I mean, we have some leaders that are very introverted, but as soon as they sit down, like when we have a board game night, you see all the other introverted kids come and they all sit down and they all are, doing a puzzle or they're coloring or they're doing whatever it might be. But then you have the extreme extroverts who are out there playing foursquare, playing kickball and gathering the team. And then all these kids are attracted to them. And so it's just a willingness to love this generation. And so that's what we look for specifically. And, the greatest comment you can ever get from a leader is when a student looks at you and says, I'm coming for your job.
Yeah.
And I have a handful of students that tell me that all the time, that they're going to come back and I'm like, please come back and take my job. I want to go retire, come on and do this for me, and that is such a compliment to us when students come and they say that they're specifically, we have students right now who are getting ready to go to ministry school out in Philadelphia for the next 2 years. And their whole plan is like, we're going there for 2 years. We're coming right back to work with you. And when you see that, you're just like, yeah, that's what it's about. It's about reproducing leaders, constantly reproducing not just who you are, but the heart of Jesus. That's true leadership. The world doesn't need another Micah. It doesn't need another Scott. It needs people that love Jesus. Right. And it needs people that love people, and when it gets down to it, Refuge is about two things: loving Jesus and loving people. And I always say, if you can do the first one right, you can do the second one right.
Yeah. One of my favorite quotes is, the best way to lead is by being led.
Absolutely.
And I just love that because it's so true.
Absolutely.
I mean, and you can get people that are good leaders and may not be Christians and whatnot, but I don't feel that they're as lasting in their leadership as someone who is following Christ.
Well, you have to surround yourself with mentors.
Yes.
You have to surround yourself with people that challenge you in who you are. And I am so blessed to have, I have quite a few, I have a handful of spiritual mentors or fathers or whatever you want to call them in my life that are constantly challenging. Because once you think you're good, you're like, oh, I'm doing well. I got this. Like, I'm the man. They're like, no, you're not the man.
Right.
Like you have not made it. You need to, and they knock you down those pegs and they help keep a level of humility and a level of always pointing back to Jesus and saying, no, this is all about him. And being a leader, if humility has to be the central of who you are.
Yeah.
Because the moment that you think that it's about you is the moment you begin to fail as a leader.
Yeah, that's a great point. So how can people learn more about Refuge Youth?
Well, naturally, like any teenager, we're on all of social media.
Yep.
So you can look us up on Facebook at Refuge Youth Network. We're also on Instagram, Refuge Youth Network. And we do have campuses. So we have an Altoona, a Bellwood, and Tyrone. You can search any of those on Facebook as well. Or you can go to our website, refugeyouth.network.org, and we're on there. But if you need any additional information locally, you can call us at 814-889-9113, and that is the Refuge phone number.
Awesome. Thank you so much for joining us
Scott,
today.
thank you for having me, man. I appreciate it.
All right. So thank you so much for watching. This is the 306 podcast. If you haven't already, please like and subscribe. Go check out Micah and the Refuge Youth Network ministry. It's just phenomenal. Let us know what you think. If you work with the youth, if you're someone who is trying to lead and connect with that generation, what's working, what's not working. Let's start a dialogue and let's see how we can help each other out. Again, thank you for watching. Share this with some friends. Share it with a kid who might be looking for somewhere to go, especially here in the central Pennsylvania area. And we will see you next time on the 306 podcast.